So tonight's message is the narrow road. Okay. Now, I know that we don't like the word narrow. We'll go into that in just a minute. But first of all, I'm driving my car and I realize that I am kind of limited to these types of elements. My car can't just go any old place. But it's interesting that we as human beings made roads and we made vehicles to be on roads. Now, in our day, we have tires and engines and stuff like that. In ancient times, they only had like carts and oxen and horses and things like that. We go a lot faster, but the idea is still the same. I still remember that road from Sherborne going down to Dorchester. It is what we call the Roman road on the 356, and it is hyper straight, and the foundations of the 356 are still built on the old Roman road. It's still there 2,000 years later. It was so well done that they didn't even have to redo the gradients. So the road was also, the concept of roads was the reason why the Romans had such power for 500 years. Their empire lasted a really long time when we take into account how empires lasted. So the Roman roads were a big deal. Another was their way of making bricks, but that's another story altogether. Their roads allowed them to move their armies and their administrations into foreign countries very, very quickly. Build a road, you're in all the time, okay? Now, I must stay on the paved portion of the road. If I go off the road, I go into the verge, then I'm liable to go into a ditch, and I've got to get the people to come pull me out of it. I can't get out of it by myself. My wheels will just spin into the mud and whatever. Okay, so I have to stay on the blacktop, don't I?
And on the right side.
Yeah. Now I have to stay on my part of the paved road because we have it put into lanes. If it's a single carriageway, you got oncoming traffic, you see. And if you go into their lane, where you're going to have a head-on, that's not good. If you have a dual carriageway, you got a passing lane and a slow lane. You don't want to hang about in the passing lane, otherwise you're going to get a bunch of people aggravated at you. So there's a way to handle that. There's direction. I also have to pay attention to the road signs. When it says slow down, when it has speed limits, when it has watch it, there's a curve here. When you're going through a town, you have to slow it down to 20 to 30, depending on the town. And there's all kinds of things like blind summit. We've seen that. Or zigzag roads with curves and everything. So those road signs are very helpful too. There's also the basic laws of movement on a road that we have in our lives. Now, obviously, I'm going to equate this with our lives. Our lives are like a road. We are on this road. I'm at a certain part of my road, and you're at a certain part in your road. God traces the road. Now, we must be aware of one thing. God is the builder of the road. God built the road that we're on. And what we need to do is find that road and stay on it. Okay? Now, the next thing is I have the responsibility of maintaining my vehicle. Now, what is my vehicle? It is my body. Now, with a road, it's our car. You just keep on driving your car without servicing it. Your car is not going to last very long, is it? So you have to service your car. You have to keep it in good nick. Our bodies are also like our vehicles that God has provided us. If we don't take care of our vehicles, then we're gonna break down, aren't we? And we're not going to get the maximum. It's going to take us a little longer to get from point A to point B to point C, you see. So a lot depends on how our habits are and how well we maintain these bodies. Sometimes we also have to go in and have services, like you with your back, or me with my prostate, or Judy with, you got the deal. We have to look after ourselves. It's not going to go away unless I deal with it. I have to do something about it. The next thing is with a road, I have to know my destination, don't I? I'm not going to just get in the car and just start going all over the place. I normally have a destination. Now, sometimes we'll take a Sunday drive, and sometimes Judy and I will just go and, let's just go somewhere and explore. Okay, but we're going with the intention of exploring. In other words, we're still not without intention, are we? We still have intentions. So on this road, we have all of these things that come into play, and this road is called life. we have a start, and when we get to our destination, well, that's when our road has run its course and we've arrived, okay? Now, let's go for Matthew 7, verses 13 to 14 now, okay?
Enter by the narrow gate, for wide is the gate and broad is the way that leads to destruction, and there are many who go in by it. Because narrow is the gate and difficult is the way which leads to life, and there are few who find it.
Okay, now we flinch at the word narrow, don't we? A narrow road. When we hear a narrow road, that to us, to our Western ears, means a limited road. But the narrow road is not a limited road. It's a narrow road that leads to greater accomplishment, greater life, you see. We tend to look at it as narrow-minded, limited, or restricted because of our Western eyes. We also don't like the concept of, well, some make it, some don't. Because when he's talking about wide is the way to... Did you read a 14 as well? Did you? Okay, so wide is the road to destruction. That means the anything goes thing doesn't work, does it? The road that God has made for us. I don't want to make my own road. I want to walk his road because he knows me better than anyone knows me. He knows every molecule in my body. He made me. He loves me completely. And if he says a narrow road, he means the road I have given for you to go. Now, it doesn't mean that it is a limited road. It is not a limited road. It means that he gives you a road that gives you the maximum, not the minimum. Okay.
An interesting idea. When we used to go and visit David in Southampton, we used to go down the A31 and then it would get congested. So we would look for a little side road which was little known, but it would avoid all the blockages on the main road and get us there quicker.
Yeah.
Although it was a narrow, windy road, we usually got there much quicker than we would if we had gone on the wider road. And the same principle applies spiritually.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. In Dorset, there's all kinds of little tiny roads that you can get off the main drag and avoid all the congestion. Now, another thing that kind of bothers us about this word, the narrow road, is because it kind of chafes at our concept of individuality, doesn't it? It kind of makes us think, well, everybody's got to sort of get in this road. No, when he's talking about the narrow road, he's talking about your narrow road. Your narrow road is different from my narrow road. And everyone's individual road is different because God made us creatively. And the road he has you walk is not going to be the same road that he has me walk, which is why I can't judge you and you can't judge me, because I would be judging something that I have no idea what I'm talking about. You are absolutely uniquely individual. God loves your individuality, okay? He loves the fact that you are unique. And when we hear something like the narrow road, we get the idea, well, everybody's supposed to go this way. Well, that's not what he means at all, because that would contradict how he creates us. He created us to be individual. He created us to be unique, every single one of us. You see? So that narrow road doesn't mean that. Okay? We can only walk that narrow road with the characters and giftings that God gives us. I can't walk your narrow road. You can't walk my narrow road because it's your road. But that narrow road does not have negative connotations to it. It has the very best of connotations. It means that God has given you a perfect way. It means he cares enough about you to give you your road. He's already given you something absolutely precious and something that always blows me away. The fact that he's given me life. The fact that I live. Have you guys ever just got into the wonder of the fact that you're alive? I'm alive. I'll never forget in the Russian version of War and Peace, there's a film where Prince Pierre Peter is surrounded by Napoleonic soldiers, and they're getting ready to shoot him as they just shot someone, one of his comrades, and they've got him on the execution stake, and they're going to shoot him. And it stops. He says, "No, but I don't want to die." And then, "I love the flowers and the trees and the hills." And it takes him on this journey where he's flying above the hills with beautiful trees and clouds and sunshine and the seascapes and the beautiful mountains and all of the wondrous creation. And then, boom, the gun goes off. And what happened at that moment is the Russian troops rescued him in extremis. It's a very, very dramatic part, but I that so touched my heart because it's such a wonderful thing, just being alive.
I don't know if you've ever seen Scrooge. There's a scene right at the end of Scrooge when he's seen all the different ghosts who told him what a rotter he is in his life and everything, and then right at the very end, he wakes up and he says, "Oh, they've made it all in one day, and I'm alive."
Yeah, I'm alive. You know, with the Finney, the Albert Finney version. God, so good. Woo! Thank you very much. Anyway, we'll get into that. Thank you very, very, very much. Okay, we'll talk about that later. Now, Exodus 13, verses 17 to 18.
When Pharaoh let the people go, God did lead them on the road through the Philistine country. Am I reading the right place?
Yes, 17 and 18.
Yeah. Though that was shorter, for God said, if they face war, they might change their minds and return to Egypt. So God led the people around the desert road towards the Red Sea. The Israelites went up out of Egypt, ready for battle.
Okay, now you'll notice that God takes care of the Israelites, and he does that every step of the way in your lives as well. He takes you on that road that will avoid pitfalls. I have a suspicion, ladies, that when I get up to be with the Lord, he's going to show me how much he saved me from. How many terrible rendezvous he had me avoid, or how many dangers he saved me from. He's going to show me all the things that he really did for me. I just have a suspicion he's going to show me, not so that he can puff himself up or nothing. Just I'm already hugely, immensely thankful for what he has done for me. But I think that I've only touched the tip of the iceberg. I've only touched the very small portion of what I perceive, what I have seen. But I know and I'm persuaded that there is more to it than that. Now notice that every time the Israelites were to move, the fire by night and the cloud by day. And not only that, before they even moved from crossing the Red Sea, they had that so that the Egyptians could not see even where they were. So God protected them, and not only that, he kept them from warfare at a time when they were probably not strong enough.
Vulnerable.
Yes, not strong enough in their resolve to be able to withstand it, you see. So there had to be a preparation. Okay, now let's go Luke chapter 10. We'll start just with, let's read the whole thing, 30 to 37, okay?
Then Jesus answered and said, a certain man went down from Jerusalem to Jericho and fell among thieves, who stripped him of his clothing, wounded him, and departed, leaving him half dead. Now by chance a certain priest came down that road, and when he saw him, he passed by on the other side. Likewise a Levite, when he arrived at the place, came and looked and passed by on the other side. But a certain Samaritan, as he journeyed, came where he was, and when he saw him, he had compassion. So he went to him and bandaged his wounds, pouring on oil and wine, and he set him on his own animal, brought him to an inn, and took care of him. On the next day when he departed, he took out 2 denarii, gave them to the innkeeper, and said to him, take care of him, and whatever you spend, when I come again, I will repay you. So which of these 3 do you think was neighbour to him who fell among the thieves? And he said, he who showed mercy on him. And then Jesus said to him, "Go and do likewise."
Okay, I'm going to take it from a backwards point of view. I'm going to take it from verse 37, 36 and 37 first. Notice that Jesus doesn't have a go at them. He doesn't come out and say, you guys are rotten, you should do this, should do that, da 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 da. He asks them a question which leads them to find the answer themselves. I've found over the years that this is probably the most profitable way to help someone is to ask questions, because what's going to happen when questions are asked is there's all kinds of questions in your mind when you're answering, and you will often at times discern the solution to the dilemma by the questions that are asked. You see, now a lot of times we don't ascertain the questions, the relative questions. We see the negative situation that we find ourselves in, and what do we want? We want out of it. We want things to go back to normal, be it health, finances, or stress or whatever. But the thing is there's a reason why it happened, and we have to ask the questions to really fully understand the situation in order to get out of it. Okay? So Jesus asks questions. You're going to find that all throughout the gospel, Jesus uses this. The only time that he's very, very pointed and intentional about going at him is when he saw legalism and arrogance from the religious people. That he absolutely hated. And he went straight at him. He said, you guys are like whitewashed tombs. He had no patience for people who were supposed to spread the word of God and the love of God, but failed miserably. Now, when we go to the beginning of this story, first of all, the voyager's ethnicity wasn't specified. Do you notice that? It doesn't say whether he was a Jew or a Gentile or a Samaritan or a Philistine or whatever. It just says he's a voyager. And he's walking along the road, and he did not anticipate that he was going to get beaten and robbed and, any more than some of the situations that we've had that have beset us. We didn't necessarily know that this was going to happen. But the fact of the matter, it did. And then he's all of a sudden stripped. I rather think he's naked as a bluebird. And they took everything that they could from him. And here he is, half near death, I believe it says. Okay? So now the next two verses are really interesting, because the very people who should have helped them, the priest and the Levite, they were the ones that were supposed to have the sacred oracles of God and the love of God in their hearts, and they just walked on the other side of the road. Now we can ask ourselves, why did they do that? Well, first of all, just some suggestions. They didn't want to have to be declared unclean and not partake in the services at the end of the week at the synagogue. And if they would have handled the blood of a man and an injured man, I think that would have rendered them impure. And especially if the man was a dead man. And they probably perceived that he was close to death. And if they were to succor him, then that would be risking the fact that he would die in their presence, and they would be ceremonially unclean. And I believe that you had to do a purge of 7 days, was it? It was 7 days. So you could not partake of the service. Now, if you did not partake of the temple service, then there were many questions asked of you. Why didn't you come? It was quite repressive. So you'd have all kinds of explanations and things to be gone over with people. Now, another reason was possibly they just didn't want the burden of responsibility for the man. Because if you pick up the man, you can't just put him back down again and say, okay, well, whatever. You pick him up, you pick him up. You've done an action that means that you have taken responsibility for that man. That, I think, is probably more to the point. They didn't want to take responsibility for this man. I personally think it was a question of a Jew. The man that was beaten up. I think, but that's just my perception of why he would enter that into the story. Now, interestingly enough, the third one who does, so let's see.
7 days.
Yeah, it's 7 days. Judy just looked it up. Whoever touches a dead body is unclean for 7 days. How about if you touch the blood of a man? That's an issue, because I think it's the same thing if you touch someone's blood. I think. I'm not sure. Judy will look that up. Now, the Samaritan was interesting because he was from an impure race of mixed Jewish and pagan ancestry. Okay, so the Samaritans were seen as apostates because they were of Jewish origins, but they intermarried with the Philistines and with the Romans and with all and sundry, so they were not a pure race at all, which is why the Judeans did not have anything to do with the Israelites or the Samaritans. They were hated, they were shunned, and no contact was permitted. Many people refused to be ministered to by Jesus Christ because he was coming down from Galilee to Jerusalem, and he refused to go around Samaria. He went through Samaria, which means a lot when we go to John chapter 4 with the woman at the well. He went through a village of Samaria and saved not only the woman, but the entire town. But the Jews didn't want anything to do with him because he so-called fraternized with Samaritans, you see. Now, the one who did have contact with them, they considered as unclean, yeah?
Whoever touches a person with a flow must wash his clothes and wash himself with water, and he will be unclean until evening. So even that,
you're declared unclean. Okay. Yeah. And I rather think that if they were on their way from Jericho to Jerusalem, they were on the way to the temple, probably. Anyway, so this Samaritan man rescued the man to the point of paying for his recuperation. He takes him to a hotel, and make no mistake that hotels were just as expensive then as they are now. You earned a lot of money being a hotelier because you charged quite a lot of money for a night. You know, you would charge the same thing in 4 or 5 days as you would normally a monthly renter. So it was enormously expensive. But this man says, okay, not only will I pay for you now, but when I come back, if there are additional costs to be reimbursed, I will reimburse you. So this we can see is very much a type of our redemption in Jesus, isn't it? That here we were Gentiles, we were not believers, and then we came to faith, and what did he do? He rescued us. He took us from nothing and made us something. He took us from death and brought us into life. He took us from a stricken point and put us into that narrow road that we are now able to negotiate, you see. Whereas before, you could tell me all you wanted that I was supposed to go a narrow road, and I would have told you how many ways you can go get stuffed. Because there was nothing that I had in me that would respond to that. But because he then rescued me and put his Holy Spirit in me and let me know that I was good for eternity now because of what he'd done, that changes everything, doesn't it? So just to unpack it all, figure out what the narrow road means to you and what things can turn your road into a wide and destructive one. I have certain things that can turn my road into a wide and destructive one. I like alcohol too much, more than this is why I strictly try to limit it, because I like it more than I should, and there's alcoholism in my family. I'm careful about that, okay? Just to name something. I don't know what your destructive wide road is, but that's something that we've got to figure out and then put to the Lord.
I think if we are honest, every single one of us has something in our lives which is a destructive pattern.
I would suspect it's so, yeah. All of us. I think all of us have our things. What I struggle with, you probably don't struggle with. And maybe if I told you some other things I struggle with, you go, wow, how silly. What do you struggle with that? What's wrong with you? And maybe if you told me some of the stuff that you struggle with, I go, what? But that's the beauty of the fact that God did make us unique and individual. Now, the next thing is know that there's going to be dangers, okay? But now, your Good Samaritan's there. He's going to come and rescue you. He's not going to leave you in the state that you're in. Even though at the time that you're in it, it seems like there's no escape and it seems like you can't do anything about it. But even now, he is doing what is necessary for your healing and for your restitution, for your recuperation and restoration, okay? He's doing things behind the scenes. The ones who seem to be, or the ones who should give you relief, may not do it, okay? We have all seen phony sky pilots, haven't we? Yes, we do. They don't have the proper hat or the proper shirt, and they're rogue traders, and they'll take that 747 and act like it's a little Cessna and, do all kinds of funny business with it, and they'll crash it. But there we go. The ones who should help you sometimes won't. And to me, that's very disappointing, especially when the ones who should help me are Christians and they don't. I still struggle with this, and you will too. That's part of the game. But that doesn't change the beauty of what our Savior's done. He even gets better when you see that, okay? And then don't let ourselves become cynical when we're not helped by the ones who should help us. It's easy to become, that's easy to let yourself fall into that. I am susceptible to that, okay? And the last one, enjoy the drive. Enjoy the Sunday drive out with Jesus, where he's going to show you the hills and the trees and the meadows and the lochs and the beautiful trees and everything. He's going to enjoy the drive, because most of it will be highly enjoyable, but some of it will involve challenge. Okay? So the road you're on is a narrow one, but it's not a limited one. And it's a very, very good one. And it's your road. No one else can do it but you.